Hi, I'm Zoe with Paranormal Extraction and welcome to my show. Don't forget to follow me on YouTube. That's the new thing now, YouTube, Zoe Star, or Paranormal Extraction on Facebook. I'm on Instagram too, and that's Paranormal Extraction. But you guys, this is so cool. Today we have TJ on, and she's going to be telling us about her paranormal experiences from childhood all the way to adulthood. So I really want you guys to watch this because it's an amazing story. I've already heard it, but I can't wait for you to hear it. So hey TJ. Hi. Welcome today.
Thank you.
And thank you so much for reaching out and wanting to talk about this because I think a lot of people need to hear this. You know, a lot of people are really scared to talk about things like this, or they think people think they're crazy. And by you doing what you're doing today is you're kind of letting the worms out of the can.
Right. Yeah, my first time really talking about this. So.
Yeah. So why don't you start with when this started happening to you? I remember you were talking about your childhood and how this all started.
Yeah. Well, you know, I can't really remember at what age exactly that this had started for me. I know that ever since I was a toddler, I was having paranormal experiences. The one that really did it for me, the one that I really recall, was I was probably about, I want to say 8 years old. And I remember feeling really afraid when I went to bed. And me and my younger sister, we actually shared a room at that time. And I was like, you know what? My little sister is going to protect me tonight. And I crawled in bed with her. And I remember waking up in the middle of the night. And upon waking up, there was an old man laying in between me and my sister. And to an 8-year-old, that's extremely terrifying. I didn't know who this man was, what he wanted. I can say, even though I was afraid, I was 8 years old, you know, seeing something like this, I can say, you know, I don't feel like I had a bad feeling from this guy, but still afraid. And the only thing that I could think of, his eyes were closed, and I'm like, I don't want to wake this guy up.
Oh my
and
God.
I quietly, got out of the bed, and I ran upstairs, and I woke my mom and dad up. I was just screaming, and I was telling them, there's a man in our bed, there's a man in our bed. And my dad hurried up and ran downstairs, and there was nobody there. And that's something that I was actually talking to my mom about this the other day. And I was like, do you remember that? And she's like, oh, how could I forget? She says, you had a blood-curdling scream going on that just woke the whole entire house up. And that was my real first experience seeing these things. As, you know, the years went on, I had several more occurrences. At this point, I was probably about 10 years old, and I remember this dark hooded figure walking into my room. And I was so afraid. I couldn't move. I couldn't scream. I couldn't do anything. And this thing walked to the end of my bed with its head down, and all you could see is a hood over the bed. Walked to the end of my bed and just stood there watching me, and then it knelt down and put its head right on my bed. Wow. And I was so terrified the whole night, I didn't know what to do. Those were two really terrifying experiences in my life. And, I tried telling my parents, I tried telling them and explaining to them, you know, things that I'm seeing, things that I'm hearing. They didn't want to believe it.
Right.
In the religion that I grew up in, things like that. were unheard of. They didn't happen.
Right. So you were kind of looked at as maybe possibly the devil was coming into you. Is that how they looked at you, you think? Or, I mean, did they think you had psychological problems?
Yes. And you know, that kind of goes back to, you know, what I was saying is that me and my mom were sitting down and talking about this the other day. So when I was younger, my mom and dad didn't know what to do with me. They knew that I was always afraid. I was always terrified of what I was seeing, what I was hearing, things that were going on with me. And so my mom and dad actually had me admitted to a primary children's psychiatric unit for 3 months for observation to find out what was wrong with me.
Unbelievable. Unbelievable. Now,
Yeah.
right before this happened, before they admitted you to this psychological, so basically a nut house is where you were. Was it a nut house?
I wouldn't necessarily call it a nut house. I mean, this was ran by Premier Children's here in Utah. Premier Children's is one of the, you know, one of the top hospitals.
Oh, okay. I get you.
Yeah, and so this place where I went, you know, it is for children who suffer from, you know, depression or, you know, all sorts of different problems.
Right. So wait 1 second. Now, before they admitted you to that hospital, you had many more occurrences to make them think more. Was there any others that you could speak about before they admitted you into seeking help, or just was it random things that you don't remember?
It's random things that, you know, I don't remember. I know that, you know, I constantly heard voices talking to me, you know, telling me things, you know, constantly seeing things, so much so that I was very withdrawn as a child. You know, my mom was telling me, she's like, you know, you would just go sit in a corner and just cry. And she's like, and we had no idea what was going on with you. We didn't know what to think, what to believe. You know, they didn't want to believe anything of what I was telling them. They just thought, oh, there's something wrong with our daughter. You know, we got to figure out what's going on with our daughter.
Right.
And
so that's why they admitted you then into this children's hospital, which I think is a good idea. I mean, it's good to always, you know, instead of not knowing, I mean, it was a good idea. And then, so they admitted you there and they found nothing, right?
Yeah, they said, well, your child is severely depressed, but, you know, as far as there being a medical explanation, there's none. There's nothing wrong with your daughter mentally. And so that was it. I mean, I was, you know, I had depression. They did prescribe me some kind of medication, which, you know, I can't even remember what the heck it was, for the depression. But I don't even remember even taking the medication, honestly. I mean, my childhood, there was so much of it, that's just kind of been blurred out, because I think my whole life I've just been more, you know, I just focused in on what was going on with me that...
Well, you were probably depressed because they didn't believe you. And then now here you are in this hospital and you're just a little kid and you're having all these paranormal experiences and basically no one's believing you. So of course you're going to be depressed.
Yeah.
Because you're going to think that it's all you and what's wrong with me.
Right.
And how old were you again when this was going on?
I think that this started around 8 years old.
Right, okay. And so then after you were admitted, what other experiences did you have?
After I was admitted, you know, I often had experiences to, you know, spirits coming to me at night, doing things that would just terrify any kid. You know, still sharing a room with my sister. There was even one point that it was me and my sister and my brother that shared a room. And there was a lot of paranormal that would go on in the night. And I was the only one that would ever hear it. I was the only one that would ever see it. Knocking on the closet doors, people walking in and out of my room. There was one night. It was me and my brother and my sister, and we were in bed asleep at night, and you just heard this knocking coming from my closet door, and then I seen somebody open that door and walk out from the closet door across my brother's bed and towards me and my sister. Oh my gosh. I screamed so loudly. It was the most terrifying thing ever. And when that happened, it had my brother and my sister screaming. They didn't know what to think. My mom and dad come running in the room and everything to, figure out what's going on. And I had scared my brother so much that even though he wasn't seeing what I was seeing, he was trying to get under his bed because he was so afraid.
Well, it sounds like something out of a horror movie. I've actually seen, bits and pieces of what you're talking about on horror movies.
Yeah.
With kids. There actually was a scene with a kid in a bedroom, just like you're talking about, with the knocking on the door in the closet, and she had her sister in the bedroom, but it was exactly what you just said. Horrifying.
Oh, wow. Wow. And it is. It's the most terrifying thing to even have to live through. And it was sad during the time that, my mom and dad, they didn't understand or believe or want to even take the time to really understand me, to really listen to me, to figure it out. A few years had gone by, and the occurrences of me being afraid, me waking up my sister, me waking up my brother, the whole household with what I was experiencing, it was too terrifying for my sister to have to deal with my reactions. And my mom and dad at that point, they really didn't know what to do. And, they decided, I have an aunt and uncle who are very profound in the church and everything. And they're like, you know what, we're gonna send you to live with your aunt and uncle.
That's horrifying in itself.
Yeah. And it wasn't, there were good times living with my aunt and uncle, but it wasn't the best situation for me. I missed home very much. I missed my mom and dad very much. And I feel like maybe living with them, it helped a little bit, but I still had the occurrences. Nothing was changing. I was, to make matters worse, they had me in a room by myself, which was even more terrifying to me. And there were many nights that I would get up and I would go into my cousin's room and sleep on my cousin's floor, because I'm like, I just need somebody with me to feel safe.
Right. So did they understand any of this, or did anybody have the house blessed, or have you blessed, or so they did nothing about this and just let these occurrences just keep happening?
Yeah, I know that if I remember correctly, I believe that my uncle did give me a blessing. So I'm LDS, and that's the background that I grew up in, was LDS. And, what they believe is if they, do a laying of the hands on top of your head, right. Somebody who holds the, I'm so sorry, I'm not even familiar with it anymore because it's been so many years, but somebody who holds the power to be able to give a blessing, it has to be a man. So they did that and everything and tried that. But here we are all of these years later, and things for me, they got worse. So, as I'm going into adulthood, I've now got children of my own, and the experiences not only I was going through, but some of the experiences that my children had to go through. Very hard.
Okay, so I remember that when we were talking before about your son, there was an occurrence that happened with him, and then you found him outside the door or something, the front door. Is that the one I'm thinking of?
Yep.
Yeah. So I mean, so you pass this on to your children, but that was one of the times, and luckily you knew about this. You knew that you already had it, so you were able to understand it and believe it.
Right.
So what was that story again? Because that was pretty heavy duty.
Yeah. So this story I'm going to tell you. This is this had a major impact on all of our lives. I was a young mom. I had 2 children. My son was 3 years old, and then I had a 2-year-old daughter. And for the first, and I was a single mom, for this first time, we moved out on our own. I got my own apartment with my kids. And shortly after moving into this apartment, my son developed a pretend friend by the name of Michael. And this went on for several months, where he would carry on conversations with Michael, and I didn't really think anything of it too much, In this instance, this was one thing that I never seen. I never, picked up on anything with this Michael character that he was talking to. And things, after several months started to take a turn. There was one instance where, the kids, they wanted to sleep in my room with me. They didn't feel safe in their room. And I was like, yeah, of course you can come and sleep with Mommy. And my son says to me, he says, Mommy, Michael wants to know if he can come in. And I thought, that's a strange thing for a child to say.
Yeah, it is.
And I was like, no, Tony, Michael is not allowed in here. He needs to go outside. And he was like, okay, The other thing is my kids, they had 2 little figurines that they like to sleep with. My son, he had a figurine of Jesus holding a woman in his arms. And he had to sleep with that thing every single night. My daughter, she had a little figurine, and it was of Jesus with the 2 little children alongside of him on his lap. And, they had to have this every time they went to bed. And there were actually, you know what, let me get back to that, because that's going to come into play at the end of the story.
Okay.
But the next morning after Tony had asked me if Michael could come in, and I told him no. I had my kids sitting at the table, and I was making them breakfast. And Tony says to me, he says, Mommy, Michael says I have to kill you. And I just lost it. My jaw just dropped. And I was like,
that's
what
scary.
3-year-old says something like that?
That is scary.
Yeah, where did they even come up with anything like that?
They're not going to, unless, of course, there's something paranormal going on. I mean, dark and sinister for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And
I mean, that freaked me out. That freaked me out.
Oh yeah. and being there with just me and my kids, I'm just like, okay, I know what's going to happen. I know where this is going. And at that moment, I recognized it. I was like, we have a problem.
Right.
And I didn't ask too many questions of what Michael was doing or anything with Tony. I already kind of had this figured out and everything. But one thing I would do is I would tell him, I don't think Michael's a really good friend. I think that you need to tell Michael he needs to leave, that he's no longer welcome here. And I think by me trying to deter that and talk to him about getting rid of Michael, in a way, probably made it worse. So a few months had gone by. You know, in that few months, more and more things were happening in the kids' room. The kids were no longer sleeping in their room. The room was always cold. You can see things like, you know, they had a teddy bear. I would put it on the bed, and a few seconds later, without the kids even being in there, the teddy bear would be clear on the other side of the room. The window in there would open by itself. And then, a few months had gone by, and I had met somebody, and he'd moved in with me. And there was the one night when everything kind of came to a head. The kids had fallen asleep in our room. And when I was talking about the little statues, they always had to sleep with those statues. They felt safe with those statues, little figurines. And they had fallen asleep, and we picked them up. And we took them out to the front room and laid them out on the couch to sleep. We didn't take those figurines with us. Anyhow, we went back to our room, went back to bed, and at some point in the middle of the night, something consciously woke us both up, and we looked at each other, and something said, "Your kids are in danger." At that moment, all you can hear is the kids just screaming, and we got up and ran from our bedroom down the hall. The kids were nowhere to be found. Couldn't find the kids anywhere.
Oh my God.
And my boyfriend, he had unlocked the deadbolt on our front door, because he could hear Tony. He can't see him, but he unlocked the deadbolt. The door was locked. We found my son standing out on the ledge of the apartment.
Yeah, so the deadbolt was locked, but somehow it got unlocked, and your son couldn't have done that, and then he was standing outside on the ledge on the apartments.
Yep. There was no physical way whatsoever for him to unlock that door, because, I mean, he's a small child. This door lock is clear up here. There's no way for him to reach that, and then, let alone lock the door, deadbolt it after he's out that door. So
yeah, what did you do next?
So he grabbed Tony, he brought him inside. Still can't find my little girl. I can hear her screaming, and we're in just such a panic, trying to figure out what the heck is going on. And next thing I know, she comes running out of our bedroom. We have no idea how she got past us, how she got in the room. We have no clue. She was in the front room screaming, and the next thing we knew, she's coming running out of our bedroom. So I grabbed her, we picked up both of the kids, and we just sat on the couch and we just held them, and they were just shaking. We were trying to wrap our mind around what the heck was going on.
Exactly.
And and we couldn't get either of the kids to tell us what happened. They're terrified. They're, shaking. We're trying to console them, and neither one of them could tell us what happened. And so we decided that night that we need to stick together, and we pulled our mattress out to the front room so that we can all lay together with the lights on, no lights off whatsoever, because at that point I'm feeling there's something evil in my home.
Right.
And so as we're laying there, you can actually see this dark shadow that's just circling the room. You just see this thing just circling like this the whole night, and you know that it's watching you. You know that something is not good about this thing. You're just scared out of your mind the whole night. I don't think I even slept that night. My kids eventually did go back to sleep, but that was them literally being cradled in our arms.
Wow.
The next day, my son, I was talking to him again, and I was like, can you tell Mommy what happened last night? And the only thing he would tell me is, he said, Mommy, Michael was here, and trust me, Michael had a monster with him, and the monster tried to hurt Sissy.
Wow.
What?
So,
Yeah.
I mean, right. So what did you do? You could get it. Did you look into doing any home cleansings, or, I mean, or since this, because there's a bunch of different modalities that you can try to do. Did you try any of those things, or how did you deal with this? Because this is frightening.
Yeah, it was very terrifying. At that time I was so young, and I was a young mom. I think I was maybe 20 years old, and I was just so, even though I had these experiences my whole life, I was just so, I don't know, naive on what to do. I had no clue, because back then, 20 years ago, more than 20 years ago, this kind of stuff wasn't exactly known about.
Right.
It wasn't exactly, popular like it is now. There wasn't a lot of resources. I mean,
Right. Yes, you are right.
so I really didn't know what to do. The only thing I could think of was, one, we prayed so hard. I had taken out my Bible that I had. I kept it next to us. We prayed and prayed and prayed. I got down with my children. I helped them pray. And then, a few days went by, and I was like, I've got to reach out to a bishop. I've got to talk to somebody in my faith,
Right.
to see what they say, to see if they'll help us. And so I did. I arranged a meeting with the bishop in the area that I lived, and told him what was going on. And he says, you know what, let's come out and let's bless your home, and let's do a blessing on your children.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, okay, yes, let's do that. He came out, he performed he did a church blessing on the home. He did the laying of the hands, of which I talked about, on my children, and gave them a blessing. And after that, when my son did talk about him again, it was done. It was gone.
Wow. That's fantastic.
So, yeah. So, and a year had gone by, and we went through some very traumatic events in our lives. I had turned 21 on the 1st of January. And on the 7th of January, I was diagnosed with terminal ovarian cancer. And
oh, that's right. Okay, this is amazing. Right. Okay.
yeah,
Yes.
yeah. So I was diagnosed with this, and I lost my job. I could no longer work. The boyfriend that I had at the time just turned out to be a real piece of work. He didn't stick around with me or the kids or anything. He decided he couldn't handle somebody with cancer and 2 kids, and so he just up and left.
Wow.
And it just kind of left us nowhere. Had to move out of my apartment. Really had nowhere to really go or anything like that. And
Sad.
Wow. The kids were going through a tumultuous time. I was going through a tumultuous time, and we kept having paranormal things happen to us and everything. Every now and then, Tony would experience things. My daughter would experience things, which the things that my daughter experienced, she can't even remember now. But I felt like we had so many different energies around us at that time. Like, here I am, as close to death as I can actually be.
Right.
And scared out of my mind, depressed like no other.
Right.
And I remember laying in bed one night and having the spirit of which I believe was the Holy Ghost, whisper in my ear saying everything was going to be okay. And so from that moment, I was like, okay, we can get through this. I'm going to be okay. I'm going to survive this. I'm going to be here for my children. And, I don't remember how many months had gone by or anything I'd done. I started chemotherapy. I was going to chemo every Wednesday, which I was receiving one drug called bleomycin. Every 3 weeks, I was doing a different drug, which they referred to as cocktail. And somehow or another, I pulled through it. My doctors were just like, I can't explain it, after surgeries and chemo and everything. But they're like, you're in remission.
That's amazing.
And so I feel like, I had somebody looking out for me.
Right.
To pull me through this.
Right. So all of a sudden you had this, and they said it was terminal and you were going to die, and then you had this experience of this Holy Ghost that you call the Holy Ghost come down and basically let you know everything was going to be okay, and then right after that you found out that you were in remission.
Yep.
Wow.
Just like that.
That's absolutely amazing. I mean, thank God, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, I don't understand. I mean, because I've done a lot of work with this, but to have so many dark, sinister, malevolent spirits around you, I've never heard of anybody just continually to have these experiences. Most people will see like the black shadow person, black hat shadow person, or a shadow person or something evil. But I've never heard of anyone continuously going through a multitude of like evil energies that have surrounded you that you haven't been able to get rid of. However, you did at the one house with the priest and not the priest, but your elder, wasn't he an elder or something like that, come and do the blessing. So after you had your cancer and it was cleared, healed, basically healed, you were healed by the Holy Ghost. What did you continue to have experiences after that?
Yes.
You did?
I did, yes. So a few years had gone by. Well, let me kind of back up a little bit here, kind of getting ahead of myself. But during the course of my cancer, I'd had a surgery that removed my right ovary. Because that's where the cancer was pinpointed. It was called a germ cell tumor that grew right on top of the ovary. So they'd gone in, removed the right ovary, was going through the chemo. My oncologist says, you are sterile. You will never be able to have another child again. And I'm like, oh, that's all right, because I already got 2 kids. Lo and behold, I ended up getting pregnant again.
Oh my God.
Right towards the tail end of the chemo. I ended up getting pregnant again.
Oh my God.
Yep.
What did they say about that? What did they say about that? Were they looking at you like you're some miracle child or something?
They must have been, because they couldn't explain it. They're like, anybody who knows anything about chemotherapy or who have gone through it, they know that chemotherapy, it completely destroys your immune system. It takes somebody, chemotherapy in itself, it depletes a person.
Right.
And so the fact that I was able to get pregnant, they're just like, you have no explanation for that, but hey, okay.
Okay.
And so I carried my other son.
So you did. So
Yep.
Okay. So then, right after this happened, you were immediately cleared of any cancer, so you were able to have him because you weren't on chemotherapy then?
Yep, I was able to carry him. Of course, I didn't carry him full term, he was born about a month early, but he still had a good weight on him and everything. He did develop some problems. He was born with ataxia, which is extra fluid on the fourth ventricle of your brain. Most kids with ataxia, they have such severe motor function problems that they end up wheelchair bound. Not my son.
So another miracle then.
Yep, another miracle. He does have some motor function problems, but otherwise, he's done great. I mean, he's, beat all of those odds as well.
So you've had all these really negative experiences, and then totally the antithesis of that on the other side of being really positive. I mean, is that been your experiences where it's been that way?
Absolutely. We'll go through one negative experience, and then we'll have a great experience. And and after he was born, my cancer ended up coming back. It's just the luck of it. And at this point, because we were able to find it early and everything, they were able to go in and do a complete and absolute hysterectomy, oophorectomy. They removed everything, my ovaries, uterus, cervix, everything, and then we went on to living a normal life. It was great. Years had gone by, and we weren't necessarily having any experiences. And I thought, wow, this is really awesome.
Yeah. So
and then now we get to the story of our house that we moved into. So now my youngest son, he is about 3 years old, and we moved into a new home. I was working, had a great job. We had a 3-story townhome that we moved into. And all of a sudden, my younger son says to me, he's all, "Mommy, there's a bloody man in the basement."
Oh my God.
Wouldn't go in the basement. He said, "There's a bloody man in the basement."
So here we go again.
And there were nights where you can hear somebody running through the front room, the shuffling of the feet really fast.
Oh,
you
my
could hear
God.
that. You could start hearing knocking on the walls. The upstairs bathroom, things would come crashing down. There was one night, me and my little girl, my older son was away from home that night. Me and my little girl were up in my bedroom, and in my bedroom I had walled mirrors all around the bedroom, and we were just sitting there in the mirrors, and I was doing her makeup, and she was doing my makeup, just having a good time.
Mm-hmm.
And my younger son was asleep down on the couch. And next thing we hear is him just blood-curdling screaming, and so I go running down the stairs. I tell my daughter to stay there. Of course she doesn't. She comes down behind me, and my son is standing up on the arm of the couch with his arm out like this, just shaking like this, trying to reach out for something. There's, and he's just trying to grab something, shaking, screaming, and he's looking at a corner. There's basically a corner that he's reaching out to. And I grabbed him. My heart was beating so fast. I was so afraid for him. I grabbed him, and I grabbed my daughter. I said, come on, let's go upstairs. And we ran up the stairs, and I shut my door, and I locked my door. And I just stayed there the rest of the night with my kids and cradling them again. And so at that point, I was like, you know what? I need to call somebody. Okay. And so I found a company, or not really a company, but an investigative team. Come into my home.
I remember.
And they had decided, the upstairs bedroom was about 30 degrees cooler than even the basement, which is odd because, your basement's usually cooler than the upstairs.
Right.
And they're like, okay, well, we want to, figure out what this is. And so they asked me to stand at the end of the stairs and call out to this thing. And so I did. I called out to it, and I actually said to it, I said, "You're jealous because I have a body and you don't." And at that moment, I felt it come down the stairs, and I felt it right in front of my face. I could feel this thing right in front of me. And I told the investigators, I said, it's right here, it's right here. And they took a picture. And lo and behold, in that picture, they captured this thing right in front of my face in a black robe, arms extended out like this, trying to grab me. You could see another one that came up alongside of the staircase, and then another one standing behind me.
Wow.
Yeah. I actually have this picture. It's amazing to see. And with me, you can see this light coming out from my chest as a way to protect me, saying, no, you will not harm her. You're not going to touch her.
Right.
And this is where I finally start to get some answers as to what's going on. They had brought in a medium, and the medium had told me, she says, you're one gifted young lady. She says, you have no idea the light that you carry that attracts these things to you. She says, no matter where you're at, no matter what you do, and she says, you're like an open portal that these things just come up through. They cling to you. She says, good or bad, they just cling to you.
Yeah. So,
I finally got answers.
right. So you got answers. My question is because I'm the opposite. I don't really believe in paranormal investigators. Did they actually help you? Did this help?
No.
Okay. So, see, that's my question, is that they just came in to prove to you that this was actually real. So maybe you didn't feel crazy, but they didn't help. Because I'm the opposite. I help. I don't use all that equipment or anything like that. It's pretty much, we want to get rid of whatever this is that's here, you know. So on one side, it sounds like it was pretty good experience for you to know that there was actually something there. But on the other side, it didn't really help because these occurrences kept going on then, even after they were out of there?
Yeah, but even after they were out of there. And so once again, reached out to the bishop in the area, came out, did a blessing. And this bishop was actually pretty cool. He was really open to the idea of what was going on. And so he came out, and he actually lived right behind me, which was kind of nice. He came over and he stayed at my home for quite a few hours, and we just prayed. And that it helped. It got rid of it, and after that we moved out. And and through the years we had more experiences, of course. And but at the same time, I've also learned how to hone in on my abilities to control it. So it's been pretty nice.
Well, those are some amazing stories, and I love the fact that you had, it sounds like throughout your life when you've had these blessings on your house and you've had these priests or whatever come over, that they've actually worked and that you've reached out and done that, and then it stops for a while, but now you know pretty much how to deal with it. You know that it's there. You've seen evidence of it. And so is that how you're living your life now, is being more, I can't think of the word I want to use, more proactive in getting rid of these things? Can you do it on your own, or do you need to call in a priest? I'm all jumping up in my head. I want to say a couple of things because it's just mind-blowing. Can you deal with this now, or do you have, are things still happening, or they've quieted down?
Things have quieted down quite a bit, but I do deal with this on my own now. I know how to have complete control over it. A few years ago, I had gone out to Port Townsend, Washington, and I had, something attach itself to me that came back home with me. Another, terrifying, scary, whatever you want to call it, spirit entity. And it took me about 3 weeks to clear it, every night. Overnight, I
Just
was
amazing.
terrified, scared. You could feel it right there, you know. And I would just, my method of clearing things now is through meditation and prayer.
Oh, good.
And,
Excellent.
so
Okay, so you're able to, now you figured out how to deal with this situation. Last question, how are your kids dealing, how did they deal with it? Or when they had these experiences, are they continuing to have experiences, or are they okay? Are they not okay with it? Do they remember it?
my daughter and my younger son are good. They're really good. My older son, though, the one who had the experience with Michael, he has, you know, had a bit of a traumatized life that has affected him to this day. He's 25 years old now, and he's gone in and out of the motions of different things that have come, you know, down on him in his life. We've had to deal with a lot of aggressive behaviors with him. We've had to deal with a lot of emotion with him. Him turning to, you know, things to help him get through what he was going through mentally.
Right. So, but now you believe that this has something to do with how seeing these things as a child and going through these things?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
In fact, we were talking about it just the other day. I brought it up to him because he's not the easiest kid to talk to. Sometimes, you know, you never know what his reaction to things are going to be. And I think, you know, he actually lives with my parents right now. And it was the same day that me and my mom were talking about things, and he came in on the conversation and just opened up to me and just really started talking to me about things. And he'll even tell me, you know, there's certain times where he'll have a nightmare of Michael. You know, here he is, 25 years old, and how it affects him. And then he, you know, what's really interesting is he was telling me of a time when he was a kid, and he says, when I was younger, he says, I, you know, was in bed and I watched this dark figure with a hood, face covered, walk into my room to the end of my bed and kneel down and just stare at me.
Oh my God.
I was like, that is the exact same thing that I experienced, the exact same thing.
Wow.
And now my kid was experiencing that same stuff. Never ever before told him any of my experiences from my childhood.
Wow,
and
okay.
Now he's talking about the same thing.
So now that he's talking about it, I think he's more open to having a healing process because he can understand this now. So this is going to help him tremendously.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
Well, those are just some absolutely amazing stories. I just really appreciate you coming on and speaking about all this. And I mean, that's a lot of information, a lot of scary stuff, but at the same time, you've had a lot of miracles too.
Yeah.
So, is there any last thoughts that you can think of that you'd like to say?
You know, not really. I know that there are a lot of people that, now that this has kind of become a popular subject, a lot of people are trying to get into this and whatnot. But, you know, one thing I did want to kind of touch base on is you have no idea, you know, when you're going out and you're doing investigations and things like that, when you're dawdling around with the spirit realm, you don't know what you can bring in.
I'm absolutely adamant about that. I'm so adamant and so anti all those shows and the equipment that they use and what they're on TV. They're showing these children how to do this stuff when they should not be playing they should not be playing around with these spirits whatsoever. Yeah. I always say, play, you pay. You're going to go in there and you're not going to do, like you said, your meditation that you do and your prayer. You know, they're not going in and doing any of that before having their little, whatever they're using, if they're using sage and pine and sweetgrass, or having their little ritualistic things that they use to protect themselves.
Right, right, and I think that's so important. You know, I actually do active investigations. You know, I've been doing it for many years. I go out, you know, I'm actually getting ready to go and travel down the West Coast right now, or well, next week. And I go and do these things, but there's a big but. You have to protect yourself going into something like this. And if you don't know the proper way to do so, you're opening yourself up to a whole different world that you don't want to experience. I actually had a man reach out to me a few days ago who's experiencing something, and he's needing help. And
good.
so I'm trying to arrange a time to be able to go in and
Good.
help,
Good.
not just investigate, but help this man.
Good. Okay, because I remember last time that we spoke, you weren't really sure about any of this stuff, and then we talked pretty extensively about the protection and stuff like that. So now it's been, you know, like a month later, so now you're really into that. After we spoke then. I mean...
Yeah, I mean, I've always been into this. I mean, I've always, I've always been into this. Like I said, this is something that I've been going through since I was a child. And when you go through something like that, you have a curiosity. It's something that you want to stay connected to in a way to be able to hone in on what your gifts are, what you're able to do, what you're capable of doing. You want to help other people.
Yeah,
but
good.
at the same time, you also want to educate people as well.
Good. That's excellent. Well,
So,
what a fantastic story. I just want to say I really appreciate you being on here.
yeah.
And letting other people know about your stories so they can open up and maybe talk about theirs. Also, it's very educational, I think, today. I hope everybody enjoyed it. This is TJ. And so we're going to say over and out. And that is our story for today.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.